Hello and welcome to my ranking series and basically my first ranking series video. With the new and sadly the last Hitman game in the franchise, Hitman 3 launching, I thought I would make a ranking video of ranking all the Hitman games until now. I personally love this game so much. The first game came 20 years ago and it's been a hell of a journey for Hitman series, and this rank list will also include the mobile Hitman games like Hitman Go and Hitman Sniper. So mobile gamers, don't get too butthurt and don't take this too personally. Grab some food or popcorn or whatever you like and let's venture into the world with one of the best assassin figure in the gaming universe. At number 1, the worst game in the series we got is Hitman Sniper. Yeah, this had to start with a mobile game. Hitman Sniper is a 2015 mobile shooting gallery video game in the Hitman series by Square Enix Montreal. As Agent 47, the standard Hitman protagonist of the Hitman series, the player is led to assassinate several powerful figures who have assembled at 3 upscale lakefront houses in Montenegro. It is played through first-person vision of a sniper scope. While at first the game could be felt enjoyable in the palm of your hands, it doesn't take much time to get repetitive and basically loses its aura. The game rewards you for doing creative kills like luring or distracting your target and then eliminating them, or shooting a glass railing so they falls onto another enemy and kills him too, or like shooting someone's nutsack to kill him and stuff like that. You can upgrade your weapon in the game and increase their stats. The player can also purchase the in-game currency directly through microtransactions to skip game progress and automatically unlock more powerful weapons. The game also features a ranking system, but it all comes down to pay to win feature, like you can buy a fucking sniper with $20-30 and that has the best stats in the game like increased fire rate and stability. Although the game was praised by the cleverness and minimalism, the prices of the weapons are so goddamn expensive and players wanted more diversity out of this game. With that being said, you can still spend some time on your phone with this game with the initial tap and shoot gameplay. Next on the list is Hitman Absolution. This one had it coming and don't get me triggered about why this game is so down on this list, as it is also hard for me to put this over here. Personally, I love stealth game and this game was almost perfect filling that need. I was in school and I had a pretty shitty computer which was somehow able to run this game with low settings. And I loved this game so much that I finished this 3 times, but now I realized that this wasn't a really good Hitman game. It was obviously something different though after 6 long years of no title from Square Enix and IO Interactive. There was a huge difference between Absolution and previous titles. While the previous titles were getting improvements after improvements in each and every game, Absolution totally changed everything. The levels were linear and simplistic. It felt like some puzzle solving level where you reach doors with different approach, and once you get past that door, you couldn't get back anymore and had to continue from there. It was like any other level-based story game which took a pretty straightforward approach. There was this new addition of instincts which could be used and abused by 47. It was like some weird hack. I mean, the ability to scout your environment was a good idea, but shits like tagging and then executing, which played a cinematic to destroy everyone, and seeing enemies' movement made the game less challenging. The gunplay is a viable option if you are a bloodthirsty player. The level select option would let you select parts of that level where you could spawn. It's those parts where you reach somewhere and a cutscene plays. What I also didn't like about this game is the checkpoint system. The checkpoint system was terrible in this game. Obviously you couldn't do manual saves, which you could do in the previous titles, but when something screwed up and you had to reset from the checkpoint, every enemy would spawn again, meaning you'd have to do the same shit again like a puzzle game. You also wouldn't get much target to kill. Most of the time you'd just go from point A to point B. There was also this new disguise mechanism where you would pick up a disguise and whoever else is wearing the same disguise as you will detect you through your disguise. But this could also be hacked by using the instinct, which you would get as a spendable meter, and bypass yourself as the imposter.
Hey, you the one who took the last donut back at the station? Come back.
There's also no map function in this game, just this minimap to navigate. Still, even after all this, I still played this game 3 times, so there's gotta be something I loved at least, and one of them is the throwing animation. I loved to throw knife at people's face, it just gave me so much satisfaction. This game tells a story about 47 trying to protect a girl which Diana had requested after she was murdered, but actually not murdered by 47. While the storytelling was good and goofy, it wasn't a really good Hitman sandbox type game. The pre-rendered cutscenes were a good addition to add more information to the story. The voice actors did a good job doing their part on the dumb acting of cringy characters like Dexter and more. It all sounds good from a casual stealth story based game perspective, but it failed to be a Hitman game we all would love playing.
Yee-haw! I'll tell you, I don't ordinarily yee-haw, but this is a fucking yee-haw!
After this, we got the first ever Hitman developed by IO Interactive, which is codename 47, that came out at the start of this century. This is where it all started. You are a bald man waking up in some basement, a genetically engineered clone who was only given a number, not a name. 47. He escapes the place and 1 year later joins the ICA and starts taking tasks by his handler Diana Burnwood. Now this game could be at the higher place on the list, but it lacked polishments. It was the first game which was kind of a rough product that got improvements in the sequels. IO Interactive started their debut with this game and showed us what a Hitman game was like and how much potential it had from the beginning. Compared to other Hitman titles though, this game had a lot of undeveloped structure. The levels were linear and there wasn't really a lot of approaches you could do to accomplish your tasks. Also, you are more likely to get lost on figuring out what to do and end up doing trial and error process as there wasn't any manual save options. Yes, that's the saddest part. In some missions you'd have 1 or 2 extra lives, but those weren't really helpful. Let's say you got messed up and the goon started shooting your asshole. You would die and then respawn at the start, but those enemies are still on high alert and will shoot you on sight. So you would have no other choice but to restart the level anyway. It was like a one-shot thing. You either do it perfectly or you didn't do it at all. The cameras were too close to 47's head, which you couldn't even zoom out. The map controls are obnoxious as you would have to click on the functions and then interact with the map, which was very time consuming. Enemy had brain dead AI and would shoot you just because of you started running in front of them or doing some weird shits, which would make you wonder, what the hell did I even do? They wouldn't even care about cross-firing. If someone is in the way, they'll shoot you through them without repositioning. Going Rambo or guns blazing wasn't a really good idea because 47 was squishy and guards would start shooting you for the what did I do reason. So playing stealth was the better option. But then playing stealth would take a lot of time because just look at this sneak mode. How slow it is. A lot of time shooting was an obvious thing to do. Some missions like the God of the Jungle would just make you go Rambo anyway. And in Plutonium Run's Lose mission, you could even buy a goddamn minigun. Lockpicking wasn't even a thing then. One time I got locked after the room service guy left the room. Also, I didn't understand this part. Even if you had a loaded gun, you could reload it as many times as you wanted, but the bullet count wouldn't change. Anyways, I think I'm done yapping about why this game wasn't a very good one. It got its treatment in later games and that's all I'm happy about. Let's move further on the list.
Now I'm disappointed. I thought you were my date.
No.
It's funny how I like this game so much and it's above Absolution. Hitman Go is a turn-based isometric tactics game. It was released on Android and iOS in 2014 and on PC and PS4 later on 2016. I played the PC version and I loved this game. It's a really cool puzzle game which would make you think different tactics and turns. I absolutely loved the concept of this game and played some levels. It was a 3D board game which had these figurines of Agent 47 and different enemy characters. There's a variation of enemies too. Agent 47 has to go through different types of hostiles such as standing still enemies or enemies who turns 180 degrees or enemies in a pair or enemies who has a dog patrol and more like that. Some of these enemies have different perks. For instance, the dog can see Agent 47 from 2 steps away and will start chasing infinitely. There's also high alert enemies who is always using torchlight so you can't move Agent 47 there. To aid the helpless Agent 47, you'll have environmental stops like plants to hide in them or trapdoors which can move 47 to the other door. You can also use rocks as a distraction. If the enemies are in range, they will start moving towards that location. One wrong step can take you back to the start point. So you really have to think about your next move. This game was an interesting variation of the regular Hitman games you would play and it was available on almost every platform. The targets were red figurines or exit points that would take you to the next area. There were 68 levels in 5 chapters and 8 levels in the Curtains Down chapter, inspired by the level from Hitman Blood Money, and another 8 inspired by the St. Petersburg stakeout mission from Hitman to Silent Assassin. These levels were a really good addition. Curtains Down was one of my favorite missions from Blood Money. and it's really a clever idea to turn those levels into a simplified board puzzle game. The levels were not that big, it would take you a couple of minutes to finish them, but there are challenges to get more hit points or whatever you wanna call it, and it can be done by playing them repeatedly. The concept of this game was really good and different, and we have actual Hitman games to cover after this, so I'll also like to hear your opinion about this game. It's absolutely worth trying. The next game is Hitman Contracts, which was the third sequel that came out. It's mostly a remake of the first game, codename 47. It wasn't a direct follow-up, but it did fill some bits and pieces following the end of codename 47. Most of the part from codename 47 was remastered in Contracts. The game did not attempt to implement new features but improved everything based on the combination of previous two titles. It will mostly feel like a Hitman Silent Assassin game which added some important expansions. There was a suspicious meter which was added in Silent Assassin and then got improved in Contracts. The suspicious meter was pretty much scuffed in the previous title. It worked so randomly. In previous games, the AI of enemies or cops would follow you and gun you down, but in Contracts, they would team up and will try to outgun 47. So the situation is harder than before when your cover blows up. I also liked how 47 would go slow-mo when he is in the brink of death and you could get one kill to survive that. Some things I liked very much, like the sneak mode was faster than codename 47. Different fiberwire animations were added, including 47 snapping victims' neck. Lockpicking was there from Silent Assassin, and anesthetic was replaced by sedative syringe. In previous titles, anesthetic was a pain in the ass and was avoided most of the time because of how slow it was. The inventory also got improved and maps got new icons. The story followed Hitman collapsing out of shock after getting shot by an inspector. He returns to his apartment and starts having hallucinations and flashbacks of the previous assignments. This also explains why the level designing of Contracts was dark and gloomy, as it was a mix of 47's present times and the past incidents. Different approaches could be made to assassinate your target. There were 12 levels in total, and half of them was just remake of codename 47 levels, and the others would have some relation from past or future. The Lee Hong assassination mission though had the same name in this game, where other levels were named almost similar to codename 47. I liked the dark vibe of this game though. It felt so calm and quiet with the chill kind of music that would play throughout different levels. Or maybe some crazy ones too. Sometimes the enemy would have no idea about who to shoot. This was a drawback. There would be some enemies who would come close to you and stop shooting or acting weird. This was a lack of AI. Anyway, the intention behind this game was to make people experience the first title, as the first title had less success than Hitman Silent Assassin, which was a huge success, which started a great journey of Hitman games. IO wanted the players to play their first installment with improved settings, because people wouldn't go back to that old underdeveloped product after the success of Silent Assassin, and codename 47 had some really good missions. That's why Contracts was a good opportunity to shed some light on the first franchise. I also liked the fact that Contracts was made in only 9 months. I really appreciate the hard work. Even still, I couldn't place it higher than Silent Assassin, and you're about to know why. Next on the middle part of the list we got is Hitman Silent Assassin, and no, I'm not going to call it Hitman 2 Silent Assassin because there's already a Hitman 2 game. It's so confusing. So it was this game which made players move into this Hitman genre. After the first Hitman, which was somewhat okay but had a narrow gameplay field, Silent Assassin came with a much broad aspect. The gameplay wasn't as restrictive as codename 47 and fans loved this game. By 2009, this game sold 3.7 million copies, which was 1.7 million more than the next game, Contracts. When I first played this game, it was codename 47 and I didn't like it that much, but I understood its motive and saw potential in it. Then when I played Silent Assassin, I fell in love with the game. For the first time ever in a Hitman game, you're given much more opportunities and ways to reach your target and kill them. For example, the first mission showed how you can enter a mansion by either a postman or a delivery man, or maybe taking a guard disguise, with each role had different gameplay styles. As the postman, you couldn't get in with a gun, so you would have less scopes for action. As the delivery man though, you could hide a gun in the package and enter inside. This all made a player see the game as a creative thought process which players didn't experience before. It was an urge to play the mission 2-3 times to see how each approach could be played differently. Also, a lot of things improved to make the gameplay better. The fiberwire, binocular, and the compass were now a permanent part of 47's arsenal and was no longer needed to be bought at the start of each mission. The map showed all movement in real life and was so much convenient to use. You could crouch to hide behind objects, you could look through the door with the keyhole option, anesthetic was introduced, you could knock the enemy with the weapon's butt. After every mission, a rating would show depending on how aggro or stealthily you played. Lockpicking was possible for the first time and much more. All this made the game amazing after the first title. The environments, the visuals looked beautiful. To run, you would have to press the directional key and the shift together, which is pretty normal in these days. But in Codename 47, pressing only the shift key would make you run, and it was a little annoying, at least for me. A new feature called Suspicion Meter was added also, which wasn't that good. It used to work randomly and basically brought back the "what did I do" memory. The world of Hitman Silent Assassin was massive. The missions took place in Russia, Japan, Malaysia, Afghanistan, and India. This let you have a feel of the Hitman world from different perspectives and locations. Codename 47 desperately needed improvements, and Silent Assassin exactly did that. The plot was also interesting. After spending some years as Hitman and taking tasks from Diana, 47 decided to live his life as a killer and became a gardener in a church owned by a priest named Vittorio. 47 confesses his past life to Vittorio, and then a car comes to the church and kidnaps Vittorio. And then 47 would return to being the legendary Hitman again. I almost liked everything about this game. The stories, the gameplay, the tactics, the visual, everything was sick. Going back to it now though, wouldn't feel the same with all the overwhelming games releasing. Despite being a really great game, I still didn't like a thing or two, like the camera which would zoom to 47's bald head a lot. And you'd have to use the scroll wheel to reset it every time you're around any corners. Some missions like the Hidden Valley, which took place in a huge stronghold in the snow, sucked. Playing these missions were so scary at that time. The Suspicion Meter was introduced that was random as fuck. Like sometimes your cover would blow, sometimes it wouldn't. It was still a really enjoyable game overall, and this game was responsible for me going back to the next Hitman games. So I put this game on number 5 in the middle ground of the 10 games I'm ranking. Oh come on bruh. The next game on the list is Hitman 2, which came out on 2018. Although this game was released after Hitman, which came out in 2016, there wasn't really much changes in Hitman 2. It was a sequel to the Hitman series and added some more maps with not much noticeable differences. The story continues from the previous release of Hitman of 47 and Diana on hunting a mysterious shadow client, who turns out to be 47's old friend by further progressing throughout the story. A secret society called Providence also shares the same interest in tracking down this shadow client. There are some minor new features in this game. The camera would show its field of view now with a grid view. Picture-in-picture mode from Blood Money made a return. You could hide in vegetations. The other features from previous Hitman stayed, and the visual had a little more image sharpening and some lightings, and not much major changes. The Hitman 2 had 2 new added modes. The first was the single player or co-op sniper assassin, and the second one was 1v1 ghost mode. I liked the concept of this ghost mode, where you basically had a second player deployed in the map as a ghost and had to assassinate a target, with points gained with each unnoticed kill. That was a really good mode in my opinion, but sadly the server of this mode shut down in August 2020. In Sniper Assassin, you basically had to snipe a bunch of people in some maps. You could do it with either your friend or yourself. The pre-rendered cutscene was a step down as it wasn't fully rendered live animation like before, but some still images with voices. At the end of the day, this game was very much identical to the Hitman 2016. These games were still at their prime, so I didn't put this much down on the list. After this we got the sequel Hitman 3, which came out just before uploading this video. It's a sequel of Hitman 2 and the story continues from where it left off in Hitman 2. 47 and Lucas Gray on the journey to confront their former masters and finish their pact. Just how Hitman 2 was an expansion of Hitman 2016, Hitman 3 is also identical to Hitman 2 with some handful of new features and a new engine. IO Interactive used an engine called Glacier Engine to produce and revamp this final Hitman game. As a result, the graphics is a little better and there's a level in chunking with neon lights which looks absolutely amazing. You can see the Glacier Engine's wonderful work here. You could also play the previous Hitman games missions with this new engine's graphics. This game is the best in the World of Assassination trilogy, but I wouldn't put it in number 1. Because this game is just a more polished version of the previous game with not many considerable changes. There's this camera thing which helps to hack different doors and access points. It can also be used to scan objects for clues and informations. In the murder mystery level, 47 can become an investigator to solve a murder case instead of killing. To scan the clues, you'd have to use the camera. This mission is also a reference from the Knives Out movie. It's a good one. Every level features a certain shortcut to navigate more easily when you replay a level. These shortcuts are a handy feature to speed things up later in the game. I've also noticed 47 has given choices that will affect the dialogues when he's an investigator. There's also a lot of secret passages in each missions. There's some new icons above NPCs to make you understand more about what's going on. There's modular explosives, explosive golf balls, and some more new stuffs to make your kills more creative. There's a PSVR mode of this game where you can play Hitman in virtual reality, but it's a PlayStation exclusive. Anyways, this game is really the best in the trilogy, but it basically takes the previous two Hitmans and adds more nuts and bolts to make it better. It's also impressive that this game is the first major AAA game launching this year. I'll have a full review of this game later, so subscribe for that. I put this game on the 3rd place among every Hitman games released until now. Oh yeah, the toilet drowning. I've waited long enough, and if you have reached here too, then congratulations. I still don't know why you're watching this, but let's continue anyway. Hitman Blood Money was out 2 years after Contracts and was another successful title for Hitman series. I used to suggest this game to all of my friends whenever there was a conversation about Hitman games. I fucking loved this game. It implemented a lot of new features to the game. Of course, it included the shits from previous games, but it added a lot more than you asked for. Some of the interesting features were climbing obstacles, using enemies as a human shield, disarming an enemy, creating a distraction by throwing stops, and so on.
Bruh.
Finally, you could upgrade your weapons with money earned each mission. You could toss sharp objects to kill people. Sedative could now knock out enemies for the whole mission, which was very helpful. Although other guards could revive him up, you could hide dead or unconscious bodies in containers. 47 could kill someone in an elevator by climbing through the above emergency hatch and strangling them using the fiber wire. Another interesting thing about fiber wire was whenever 47 would equip that, he kept that behind his hand, so pulling out the wire wasn't instant death sentence. Yes! You could hide in closets for the first time. A picture-in-picture side camera would show you important stuff happening to give you some more hint about what's going on. The what did I do actually made sense this time because the AI wouldn't shoot you just because you started running or something. They couldn't see you through disguise when you're running or some shit, you know. So that's a really good thing. Crouch mode and sneak mode were combined. Like you totally crouch when still and sneak mode when moving. Accident system introduced, providing the player some method to make the target's death look like an accident. For example, sabotaging the gas stove to make it explode, rigging a chandelier to fall on a target, or simply pushing the target off a balcony. Another immersive feature was notoriety system. If you are caught in a CCTV camera or by an NPC, then your notoriety will rise. Witnesses will go and tell the guards if something fishy were going on. You could reduce this notoriety by stealing camera tapes or disabling CC camera or even using money after the mission. At the end of each mission, a newspaper article is displayed about the hit, in which the content varies depending on the investigation results and the player's notoriety. It also details the weapon most frequently used in the missions. This game felt a lot more realistic at that time. You would have to think a lot about how you're gonna handle things around. While in Contracts, the story came from Hitman's hallucinations, the plot here was somewhat different as it was a journalist named Rick Henderson listening the story from a former FBI director named Jack. Jack tells the story about the killings of 47, sometimes even lies to make it more intriguing for Henderson. He refers the human cloning as a terrorist's wet dream. He states that cloning could be the ultimate weapon of mass destruction, and only one clone, 47, was this much deadly. He keeps telling different assassination stories, and through that players had to play the missions. The ending was so genius by Diana. She basically used a fake death serum which 47 had to use in one mission called Flatline to extract Agent Smith. She made it look like 47 died and draped the pair of 47's signature silver ballers over his chest. Then she kissed 47 with a lipstick on, and the lipstick contained the antidote of that serum. 47 wakes up from the dead like Undertaker and basically destroys everyone. As a result, 47 and Diana continues to live on. This game was my personal favorite game from the franchise. It really left a wonderful memory for me, as after this game there was a long 6 years gap of no Hitman game. I played it over and over again. Even though the core gameplay didn't change that much, a lot of new features and concepts were added and which made the game so good. I would humbly put this game on the second place.
What are you doing, sneaking around like that? You creep?
And finally, we have arrived at the very end, and the best Hitman game in the franchise, at least in my opinion, was Hitman 2016. This reboot was one of the best reboots I have seen in any video game. Also, let me remind you once again that these are all my opinions, so don't take this personally. When 4 years ago Hitman Absolution came and gave us a totally different game, I was scared about what the next Hitman game could be and how it will change itself, because it was obvious that Absolution wasn't that much of a Hitman game but just a casual stealth game. Hitman 2016 totally gave me a boner when it came out. It was super impressive how they turned their tables and created this absolutely gorgeous game with the record mechanics to feel like a Hitman game again. It was the first game of the World of Assassination trilogy, which was a little confusing for the game's name being simply just Hitman. Also, players weren't sure if this was a total game or there's more coming until the sequel Hitman 2 was announced. There are 6 missions that included 6 huge maps. Every mission had targets to be assassinated. The game felt like the ultimate Hitman you would want to play and actually feel like an assassin. The pre-rendered story cutscenes looked visually stunning. It wasn't a linear mission-based game anymore like Absolution, but a full package featuring everything you could ever ask for in a sandbox type Hitman game, with some new features, actually a bunch of new features. One much needed change from Absolution was the instinct, and it was much more simplified and not any abusive feature that could be spent throughout the missions. The instinct didn't do any blending in shit, because that getting your cover blown for wearing the same disguise as others wasn't even a thing anymore, just like it wasn't a thing in Blood Money. I absolutely loved this new feature called Opportunities, which was basically different ways to progress through and killing your targets. Every missions had more than one targets and at least 5 individual opportunities, with each opportunities showing different ways to kill your targets. Additionally, you could still kill your target your own way, however you wanted. The NPCs were mainly the introduction to any opportunities, like you would mostly hear NPCs speaking and revealing any viable opportunity for you. You could also select them from the in-game menu. Besides the main reason of playing missions repeatedly, which was the different ways to kill your target, you could also choose different starting locations or outfits to accomplish your mission differently. It didn't have that much missions, so obviously playing them over and over with different tactics was the way to go. Contracts mode also returned in Hitman, allowing players to assign up to 5 NPCs as assassination targets, set requirements for how to kill them, and share their contract with other players to compete for high scores. The AI got improvements such as dropping illegal items were a sus thing to do now. Any NPC watching will start fighting you or complain to the guards. Save Game re-entered the world of Hitman, and God bless IO Interactive after that bullshit checkpoint system in Absolution. Autosave was also there. The detection system was the same type of detection meter you had in Absolution. Basically, if Hitman 2016 was a cheeseburger, then the meat would be the blood money, the buns would be the new features, and the cheese would be Absolution. Or maybe something else. I sometimes give weird examples. Limited time elusive targets were introduced, which had new stories and Contracts and was a one-shot mode. If you died, you couldn't go back to it anymore. That was a little sad because those were new contents which had no replayability. Escalation contracts were introduced and included multiple stages that required the player to complete certain tasks such as assassinating a target with a specific weapon or disguise or breaking into a safe. The graphics quality was the best among any other Hitman games till then. Completing challenges would unlock mastery levels which would help players using more equipments or unlocks more disguises to play. Oh, and also huge thanks to the developers for adding the drowning in toilet kills. It's hilarious. The story of Hitman 2016 also had a reboot where 47 works for the agency and assassinates targets. Later he knows that there was a shadow client who had been keeping tracks of the past assassinations Hitman had been doing. Then 47 starts pursuing this shadow client, which then continues in the next sequel, Hitman 2. The reason why I didn't put Hitman 3 above Hitman 2016 is because Hitman 3 is just like Hitman 2 with some small changes and additions. It doesn't really change the core gameplay and how the game feels. It was like an expansion to Hitman 2016 and Hitman 2. And Hitman 2016 had all the interesting time-worthy gameplay after a long time. It can be said that we didn't get a game like Blood Money for a decade. That's why, and also for giving me a boner, this is the best Hitman game ever released. If you have come this long, then thank you very much for watching. It might feel boring as this was a very long video. Hit the subscribe button if you want, and also comment down below which Hitman game was your favorite and if you agree or disagree with this Hitman game's rank. See you until then.